Hello everyone, and welcome to this week's Music Roundup. Now, first of all, a few things have happened in music for the church over the last week, which you might be surprised by, given that it seems as if not much is happening at the moment. The first is that we had a great session of Sing After School yesterday, on Zoom of course, and we were doing a survey of American music through the 20th century, which included jazz, country music, classical music by Copland, and music from Broadway, musical soundtracks, Bernstein, Gershwin, and that sort of thing. And it was a really interesting survey guided by the children. Now, Sing After School is something that has developed since January, and we've got this great news that the Westminster City Council is going to be sponsoring a new position for somebody to come and assist at that and guide the children who want to join the junior choir, and that will be someone who will also sing in the choir in the coming year. So this is a great step forward in the development of music at the church, particularly in our work with educating children and giving them opportunities. Another thing that's happened is that I've just arranged for the old 1950s organ blower, which was never a very good fit in the first place. This is what pumps the wind into the organ. I think it was the wrong size, or there's something wrong with it. And in any case, it was on its last legs and only had a number of years left to live, and was very noisy and couldn't support a full chord on the organ. So all sorts of problems with it. We've arranged now, using the last bit of budget from the Organ Restoration Fund, to replace that over the coming months with a much better fit that's going to be properly maintained, tidied up and polished, fit for purpose. So this is a big step forward in the completion of our organ restoration project. Now, another interesting thing that's happened this week is I was given the opportunity to order a bunch of sheet music for the choir. Now, the term sheet music means literally printed music, but crucially it doesn't mean printed on loose sheets of paper. So sheet music means something more like this, a nice smart book with music in. And over the last few years, because the choir in its professional format has only existed for about 3 years, I believe, maybe 4 years, we've existed on a very small music budget, as in sheet music budget. And that's involved a lot of printing off the internet, printing either cheap editions or very outdated editions, the sorts that are for free on the internet. And what you create is a sort of dog-eared, loose A4 copy, and we've had to survive with those over the last year. They're never very satisfactory to work with, and they don't create the sort of air of professionalism that we're aspiring to. So it's great now to be able to start to build up a library. To do that from scratch is a difficult thing because the list is endless of what you might want, but anthologies are a great way to start. So we've got classic anthems for mixed voice choirs, which has a number of really core parts of the repertoire, both English church music and music from beyond. This fantastic new volume, Multitude of Voices, 22 anthems by women composers for a normal-sized church choir. And then this exceptional volume, European Sacred Music, which is an anthology of music from around Europe from a multitude of different time periods, not including English music. That comes in a different volume. And two of the pieces I'm going to feature today are pieces of music from that different volume, which is called English Church Music Series 1 Anthems. I think that's the name. It's a book of around the same size as the European Sacred Music book, and it contains pretty much all of the top 30 or so anthems from English church music, things that we could really do with a copy of. The first piece I'm going to talk about, though, is by an American composer, Samuel Barber. A couple of weeks ago I shared a song he wrote, Shore on This Shining Night, one of my favourites. This one is a piece of church music, something I'm keen to put down for Remembrance Sunday if we're back singing, because that's a great day to put down music by a number of nationalities relevant to the various world wars. Now, The Agnus Dei by Samuel Barber is a famous piece. It's actually an arrangement of his Adagio for strings, written in 1933, I think. So that's a piece for string quartet or string orchestra. In the 60s, he turned it into a piece of choral music. and it's got influences of Renaissance style in it, so composers such as Palestrina and Victoria, but with a more romantic or neo-romantic flavour to it. Starting with this lone note. Over these chords, but what's amazing is this the suspension of this first note over these chords and the clash here, the way it resolves there. This is a real economy of means. It's a very efficient way of producing extremely expressive music using a very small number of actual notes. So it's a real feat of composition, and perhaps for that reason, as well as the sheer beauty of it, it's become a staple of the repertoire. That's something I would love to order a set of copies for, which would cost around £40, but we're now looking to expand that budget a bit more, which is something that you can help with. There's a newly formed or forming Friends of Music scheme. And if you want to become a friend of music, which would cost a minimum donation of £100, which can be gift aided, then it's very simple. Just drop me an email address in the description below this video, or it's music@stsp.org.uk, and we can go from there, and I'll send you all the information you needed. I became a friend of music today by making that donation myself, and I'd love it if you join me. Now, this English anthems book that I'm keen to buy a set of would cost £323 for the 20 copies we'd need. Hugh Macpherson has very kindly said that he would give £100 towards it, and some of my contribution could go towards that as well. So we're looking for about £170 still to buy that particular set of copies, which would open up the repertoire of the choir very efficiently. I did look into just picking out my 10 favourites in the book and ordering separate sets of copies of those, and even halfway through that list I'd already exceeded £500. So getting individual copies is a lot more expensive, whereas buying a set of anthologies is a real saver and an extremely efficient way to build up a library from scratch. So if you're in a position to help with that, then do get in touch. I'd love to hear from you. Now, 2 of the anthems in that book, which are staples of the tradition, are ones I'm going to feature now. So the next one is by Samuel Sebastian Wesley, from the famous Wesley family. His father was a composer, Samuel Wesley. His grandfather was Charles Wesley, who wrote the words to quite a lot of well-known hymns. Samuel Sebastian Wesley was born in 1810, and he was a very skillful musician. He was a chorister at the Chapel Royal at St James's Palace, and he was said to be, by the choir director then, to be the best boy he ever had, and was selected to sing at Brighton Pavilion for the King, which was a tremendous honour for him at the time. He then, when he was in his 20s, went and worked at the English Opera House, equivalent of what we now know as the Royal Opera House perhaps, or maybe English National Opera. This was before those institutions existed, and he was there as a pianist and conductor. And this was a very interesting time for music in England, because there weren't really any major composers, certainly not to rival what there was on the continent, with the likes of Beethoven and Mendelssohn, etc. But London was still a thriving music scene, and so the major composers of the day from the continent would come to London. And Wesley himself encountered Mendelssohn and Spohr, who's lesser known today, S-P-O-H-R, but was a big musical figure in Germany at the time, and that influenced his own musical style. And Samuel Sebastian Wesley was one of the pioneers of the new style of English music that brought English composers back into the scene after a bit of a dead period. After a number of years, he was pulled out to the provinces and became the organist of Hereford Cathedral, which he didn't really enjoy. He thought he'd been sent out there to improve the place, but encountered all sorts of opposition from clergy, and wrote this rather amusing account where he said that the choir is said to be the best in England, which is what they call it at most cathedrals. But this great anthem, Blessed Be the God and Father, sung often on Easter Sunday, had a disastrous premiere with just a handful of boys singing the top part, and the only other voice they had was the Dean's butler singing bass. And if you listen to this anthem, you'll hear there's quite a lot of interchange between treble voices and the bass part, and not so much of the inner parts. It's with organ to support the rest of the harmony, so you could perform it in its original form, but that would be pretty unsatisfactory. So a sad premiere for a major staple of the style, written in 1833, and these words come from St. Peter. It's an amalgamation of certain words of his epistles, but they're also included in the Brahms Requiem from 30 years later. And in the Wesley, there's a moment where he talks about flesh as grass and the flower of the field with a bass recitative. Maybe it's a minor chord actually. No, I think it is major. Anyway, of the field, down this low note, Dean's butler's having a bit of whiskey. And then the next part of the sentence is, but the word of the Lord endureth forever. And Wesley does this huge chord. Try not to wake my cat up there, who's sleeping in the window. And actually, in the Brahms Requiem, much the same thing happens with the word aber, meaning but. After a long, quiet section, there's this loud chord. So Wesley was almost a precursor to the great music of Brahms 30 years later, which is no mean feat for a minor English composer. And the other anthem is one that we've sung from printed out copies, printed off the internet. Again, not the most satisfactory way to sing, but if we had these anthologies, that would be a real step forward. And that's Ireland's anthem, Greater Love Hath No Man, which was written in 1912 for St. Paul's Cathedral. We sang it last Remembrance Sunday, and of course 1912, just a couple of years before the First World War began, and because of that timing of the writing of the anthem, and the quality of the music of course as well, the text, greater love hath no man than this, that he lay down his life for his friend, very quickly took on quite a new and relevant meaning in the wake of the First World War. And so that in a way led to the fame and popularity of this anthem, and it's particularly fitting for Remembrance Sunday. It's a wonderful piece, and I almost don't want to ruin it by talking about it, but it's got these beautiful little solos in the middle, and almost a sense of adventure through the walking bass that begins the piece. It's a great example of a piece of music that grows to great climax towards the end. And it even exists in a wonderful version for orchestra, which I recommend as well. So I'm going to see if there's a version for orchestra on YouTube, but otherwise it will be a good, rousing version with organ accompaniment as you might hear it. So those are a few pieces of music that I'd love you to listen to, and I'm also keen to buy sets of copies for. If you're in any way in a position to help by making a donation towards the music, becoming a friend, helping us to purchase this music and fund choral scholarships in the coming year, then do get in touch and I'll tell you all about it and we can see how you might be able to help. Otherwise, have a great weekend. Let's hope the weather gets a bit better and see you next time. Thanks very much.